One way that we often get into relationships is through the door of hastiness. We don't wait. We like to. We want that sort of immediate gratification. And so, one example of a reflection of hastiness is jumping into a relationship before you are ready. We don't have a lot of habit or time or a record of knowing when we are ready for something. However, I do think there is something on the inside of us that tells us that there is a time that we should do something, enter something, complete something. And I think a lot of times, if we would listen to that voice that is kind of anxious about whether or not we should enter a relationship, I think it would serve us well to do so. There is a time in your life that jumping into a relationship before you are ready is evident. Maybe through the voice of others, maybe you are already taking on something that is already demanding and stressful. And so to enter a relationship might sort of hinder your progress. It's subjective. It's relative. It's you have to know yourself to know if you are ready or not ready. But I do believe that there are times in our lives that we enter something before the time. Having sex also before you are ready. I understand that people have the right to do whatever they want to do with their bodies, but even adults can have sex before they are ready. Even adults, I mean, sure, we can always make the case that a young adult or adolescent, young adult, it is too early for them to have sex, right? Because they don't really know a whole lot of things about sex. They just know that their body feels what it feels. But even an adult at 20, 30, 40 years old, even if they have already had sex in their past, that in a new relationship, it still may be too early for them to have sex. And so, again, that's relative, that's subjective, it's up to you. But if you know what your own standards are, and you don't want to go against those standards, then you need to keep to those standards. And those standards could be have sex after 2 or 3 days. I don't know. It's up to you. But you can also still have sex before you're ready. Assuming that the encounter is a relationship. So a lot of times I hear some other YouTubers say that women get it wrong. Sometimes they think that they are in relationship with guys, but oftentimes what the guy and the girl are doing is reflective of a situationship, not necessarily a relationship. Sometimes girls will often begin planning from the very beginning if we like a guy, and it's just an encounter. It's just a date. It's not a relationship. We see too far into the future when there is really no consensus. So oftentimes we will dictate the rules of the relationship before there is actual consensus. And I think our childhood has a big part in it. We like someone on the playground. We take the little boy by his hand and say to him, "You're going to be my little boyfriend or my friend." And the little boy hasn't said anything at all. And so we move all of those types of experiences and belief systems into adulthood, where the young boy who is now a man can make his own decisions. And so we don't want the person to make their own decisions. We want the person to adopt our decisions. So there is no consensus. Putting money on any problem that presents itself, which is actually reflected in giving too much too early. And this is probably the most important bullet point here on this slide, is that we all on any and every level, on any and under any category, give too much too early. We haven't really assessed the situation, we don't know the person, and we think that whatever that person is going through, that the money that we give them is going to solve the problem, not understanding that men often take offense to you, giving money. I'm not saying that they won't take the money, but they know that when you give the money, you control the relationship. And with men, it doesn't even have to be a passive aggressive stance. They would just let you do whatever you want to do. If you're going to do that, if you're going to buy them clothes, if you're going to, give them money, okay, sure, no problem. But you're not going to be necessarily marriage material, because to them you are too aggressive, you are too controlling, you appear to be, or you give off this air of desperation. And so it's important to understand that we can give too much too early. If you have a person who is struggling with their rent, you need to listen first, because the worst thing you want to do is give them money and then you see them the next day and they have a new outfit, they have a new hairdo, they have some new Jordan shoes, and you say to yourself, well, I thought you needed help, that's why I gave you the money. If you were just going to take the money and go do something else with it, like buy clothes, I would not have given you the money. It's not that person's fault, it's your fault. It's my fault. I did exactly the same thing. I volunteered my time too early in relationships. So it would be better, as soon as they say they need something, to shut up. Don't say anything. Let them talk. You will hear truly if they need something. Acting more masculine because of an assumption that you must take over the relationship for whatever reason. Men tend to frown upon masculine women. Oftentimes, however, they don't understand that women who come from a single parent home where the mother is the parent and there's an absent father, they don't understand that there's a root to them being masculine in their current relationship. They saw a mother struggling, working, having to serve as both mother and father, stressed out, aggressive in certain situations, and then they take their childhood upbringing and exposure and they take it into these adult relationships, and they are being masculine, they're being almost manipulative, aggressive, a little, selfish, etc. And so there's a root issue with that. I don't think women just walk around wanting to be masculine. I don't think any woman just wants to take over the relationship, understanding that there's a lot of pressure and a lot of weight to bear, but they have felt like in their past relationships and also through their upbringing that they could not depend upon anyone. And so the best way to make sure that they get whatever they get for themselves is to do it for themselves. They're not trying to be offensive. A lot of times it's the upbringing. Talking about past relationships and hoping the potential relationship will solve past problems. So it's a lot of times you have to think to yourself, is that relationship that they are talking about actually in the past? Because if you're talking about certain issues, they may be actually current issues, and that person hasn't resolved those current issues. Because people oftentimes will say, I'm not with my ex, we're not together. I hear that all of the time. But what they are not saying is that they are actually broken up. I split from my ex. I broke up with him. They need to use those words for me today, because people can fool you. You would actually think they are not with that person, and they are still calling that person, hanging out, having sex with that person. And here it is, you think you are there to help them or whatever, and all you are serving as a rebound for them. So talking about past relationships, I would take that as honestly that they are currently still tied to that person in some kind of way, and they have not addressed it. And you coming into their lives is really not going to help them to address a problem that they need to solve on their own. And then saying I love you too early in the encounter. So we do that. All of us do that on some level, men and women, girl and boy. But you have to resist that temptation to say I love you too early, not out of gain, but out of clarity, because it's something about a man saying it over a woman saying it. And when you have a man who says it, they don't say it unless they truly mean it. If you say it first and then you expect them to say it back, they will say it. But if they are talking from their heart and from their soul and they say I love you, rest assured that it is more likely that they are telling the truth in that matter.